Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LCS Report. I'm Rob. He's Nick. And as always, I got to ask a great question for you here, Nick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm excited to talk about League of Legends with you, one of my favorite people to do it with, and yeah, things are good. How about yourself?
Oh, been a long couple days, but we're here talking league, like you said. It's reciprocated, my friend. So I'm excited to be talking about it too. We had some good games this weekend. We are talking about week two in this episode. If you didn't know, if you're looking for our power rankings and our picks and all that jazz, you're gonna have to wait until next week, or not next week, next episode, Thursday. That's the episode that you're gonna be doing it for. So yeah, no worries there, but that's okay. We had some really good games. Like I was talking about, right now, quick rundown of the standings. We got three-way tie for first because Cloud9 lost a game this week randomly. Three and one with them, NRG and FlyQuest. A little bit of two teams in the middle there, TL and 100 Thieves, and then three teams tied at the bottom at 1 and 3 in Shopify Rebellion, Immortals, Progressive, and Dignitas. So, you know, just some I don't know, basic stuff, I guess. It seems like it's the weirdest thing. I don't know how to describe it, Nick, but this LCS, when I say basic, I was joking, by the way. It's been really weird. It was interesting to see everybody on the live patch. I don't feel like things changed as much as I thought they were going to. I don't know if you felt the same way or not, but yeah, I would love to get
Yeah,
your thoughts on the standings real quick.
yeah. I mean, I think we definitely saw a few meta changes, but nothing that I feel like we can understand. Like, nothing that would like alter. Like, oh, this patch suddenly changes how good this team's going to play. I think we just saw, like a little bit less. Not standard mages, but like, there was no like Syndra this week or anything like that.
Sure.
It was really kind of, if you're not playing Azir, you're probably playing a non-mage in the mid lane, or like a utility mage, like
Yep.
a Nico for engage, or
Mm-hmm.
you're playing Orianna to kind of lose gracefully in the Azir matchup, or you're going just for like the quirky handshake, right? Just like scale up and, just that's kind of what we're seeing. Um, it's a bit stale, the
Yeah.
meta, on that point. I mean, for one thing, I think Corki Azir meta is so boring in mid lane, and but in general, I think we're seeing a bit more like static nature, where like the best junglers are junglers that can get stuff done with one item. That's why like
Sure.
you saw like they're not carrying, but they do have to have some agency. Like Sejuani, we saw Inspired really struggle on Sejuani this week, because I don't think tank junglers are actually like necessarily the way to go. I think you have to kind of have these junglers who with one item can do some damage, then let somebody else take over the game. The Vi's, the Jarvins, the Lee Sins of the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but to get to your point about the standings, I don't think we saw anything incredibly unexpected. I mean, obviously, I know that some people thought Cloud9 wasn't going to, drop a game.
That's me.
And I
Oh
and
yeah.
I will and I will say that there were people in the press room this weekend who can attest to this. But someone, I forget who it was, somebody asked in the press room, "You think Cloud9 goes undefeated this spring?" And I said verbatim, "Nah. At some point, they're going to be beating everybody, and at some point, they're going to get cocky because they know they're the best team in the league, and JoJo's going to lock in mid vane or some shit like that."
No way. You called the mid vein? Oh
And
my
so I
god.
and so I had something to do Sunday morning, so I didn't get there until after draft for C9's game. I was in shock, man. I mean, I didn't mean today. I thought like when they had like 13 wins or something like that, and so I mean that was unexpected in a sense of like C9 losing, but also like Shopify's not they were better than an O3 team, and I think they showed that in that match.
Sure. Sure.
But aside from that, I mean, we can get into it more with the matchups, but I mean, I think some people thought C9 wasn't going to drop any matches. I thought they were going to lose some games. I didn't know they were going to lose one this early, and I definitely think that
Yeah.
game, even in the comp they had, there were points even in the late game where they could have come back and won.
Oh, for sure.
So it wasn't
For
like
sure.
they got stomped or anything like that. But and I thought JoJo played fine. I just don't think the Vayne was necessarily well prepared or well executed around. And we
Yeah.
can talk a bit more about that later in the matchup because I actually did get the chance to speak to Fudge for another assignment, and I asked him about the vein, just in terms of small talk before the interview. So I'd be happy to share some stuff on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always appreciate that. Is unbelievable that you called that out. For those of you who don't know, I don't live in California, so I'm not in the newsroom with everybody, and so that is awesome to hear. I can't believe you called that. That's
It just
crazy.
felt like I feel like Vane mid is like the ultimate ego pick, right? It's the Dylan, we have to go Vane. It's he was just channeling his inner Caps, and like it made sense, right? He was into a Scion mid, he's Scion Udyr, he's like a top side that Lilia does want to run at you. Like the pick
Sure.
made sense in
Yeah.
theory. I just think with the composition and everything they had, it wasn't quite. The rest of the team seemed to not be prepared for it.
Well, and they were playing against Shopify Rebellion, so it's like that's kind of a time. I know that they were 0-3, and now they did lose to Immortals, which I do think is worth a quick minute to talk about there. But yeah, I saw that draft and I was like, okay, that's bold, but feels like it could work in the right hands. And like you said, just didn't seem like they could execute it as a group all that well. But I guess, is that going to be your game that stood out to you most then? Like, is that the one that you want to kind of highlight a little bit? I know I'm putting it on you here.
No,
okay.
It's not.
What's the, okay, I want to hear it then. What's the game that you thought from this past week is worth highlighting?
Only in context of things that I said last week it would be what I dubbed the Battle of the Week, WEAK, last weekend. Immortals Shopify I thought it was a pleasant surprise, because I said last week I don't see how Immortals wins games.
Yeah,
I see it now, because it's very easy to see. Oh well, both those teams were 0-2. Immortals just happened to scrape together. They happened to lose second instead of first, right? Like sure, you know what I mean? Like sure. Shopify lost before Immortals could lose. Like no. Immortals looked great that game. They showed a level of cohesiveness and execution throughout the game that I was incredibly impressed by, based on they're not the kind of team that's gonna beat Cloud9, but that was not 8th place macro. That was very impressive. They had good individual plays. They put Tactical in a position to where he was already ahead and he's already comfortable. And yeah, he's that kind of player. Like he's not great at going even. Like you really do kind of need to put the eggs in his basket for him to succeed. And it worked. The way that Ole and Armeo were able to coordinate was fantastic, and the Korean solo laners really held their own. I actually thought Castle had a quietly very strong week too, individually speaking, and Mask's play was significantly improved. They said that Jace is one of his strongest picks, and I think he proved that. I thought he had a great game on Jace. So I do see the formula come together for Immortals, and I would even wager that not only did that was not a cheap win against Shopify, especially because Shopify turned around the next day and beat C9. I think
it's fair.
We'll get into the power rankings later, but my point is that Immortals didn't just win the battle of last place because they didn't make mistakes. They executed confidently on a game plan. They did it well, and frankly, we'll get into this more, but they had more quality minutes in their loss against TL than TL had. They threw that game, but they were commanding the tempo and pace of that game for more time than TL was, even if they ultimately lost it. And I just gotta say, I am happy that I feel like I jumped the gun. I'm not saying Immortals is a world beater. I'm not even saying they're necessarily going to make playoffs, but what I will say is that I'm not necessarily super sure they're our last place team anymore. And frankly, given what they looked like at week 1, I think that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, and I think that's what's honestly really, I would say, worth saying, is that even our bottom teams, I don't feel like Dignitas or Shopify Rebellion or Immortals now are complete just pooper teams, I'll call them, because they all seem to have ways to be good. I think it's really interesting because we got to talk about this now in the context of there being 8 teams instead of 10 teams, and I do think that if there were 2 more teams, depending on, there are players like Golden Glue, or not Golden Glue, sorry. God, who am I thinking of right now? Licorice. Wow. Golden Guardians got into my brain for a second there with Licorice. But yeah, if, there are teams that would have Licorice and some other, I think, very strong players that aren't in the league right now.
There's several. I actually have an article coming out on the snubs of the LCS this week. So keep an eye out for that, because there's, I mean, this happens every year, but there's like a specific level, and on like there's certain guys where I'm like, how, just how,
Yeah,
and licorice. I'll just spoilers. Licorice is definitely in the article
I
because
assumed
yeah,
he's probably the
he's
best
the
free
best top
agent.
laner. He's the best top laner in North America.
Yeah,
He proved it last summer. He had the best season of any top laner in North America. He had probably the best season of his career if you adjust for the fact that he did so much more on Golden Guardians than
yep.
he did in the first. Yeah, C9 was an elite team. This is the best licorice we've ever seen. And he doesn't get to play because the contract window overlapped with Worlds and nobody had a conversation. Like, it's ludicrous that, like, oh, sorry, dude, you were too good. Sorry. I know that I just took us on a tangent there, but free my boy Licorice. Someone get him on a team. I don't even know what's going on. He's better than every top player in the LCS, in my opinion, still.
You and I both know he will be on a team either in 2 weeks or in like 5. So I would be more surprised if it wasn't in 2, to be completely honest with you. But
okay, we're gonna have to get into that at some point because I would love to see who you think he's replacing. But
it's not that I think that he's. It's not that I have a name that he's going to replace. It's just that when we have that break, I feel like teams are going to look at where they're standing, and I think this week, let's say one of the 1 and 3 teams drop, right? Like, if you can go out and sign somebody at the end of that week, get 2 weeks of practice with them, and then get back into the LCS again, that's a really nice little window there to bring a player in. And let's say, Fake God or Castle, are even Rich, maybe, I guess, pretty unlikely for Rich, but, let's just play that out. If one of those guys just aren't getting it done, then you go in there. Or let's say even throw out a complete random one. Not random, but just like totally unlikely. Let's say that Cloud9 lose all the games this week and that Fudge for some reason ends up being a total, bummer.
No shot.
Never going to happen. That's like a 1% chance. But like, let's say that happens, right? Like they expect to win. So Licorice would give them a really good chance of winning, right? Like, again, I'm not saying that there are clear-cut anybody realistic. I would say there's maybe one option truly to somewhere where he could go, and I don't even know if he would go to that team, honestly. I would say, honestly, Shopify might be the only place that I could see him potentially going. Not that I'm going to crap on Fake God or anything, but just...
No, it's just that Licorice is the best top player in the region. He's not on a team, so we have to entertain any option because on paper he is in my opinion, a 1-for-1 upgrade on every team in the LCS right now. Obviously, there are teams that wouldn't. Team Liquid would never replace Impact. They shouldn't.
Nope.
I don't think C9 would ever replace Fudge. They shouldn't. Weepo's fantastic. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But like that's my point, right? Is that we're in a weird situation with 8 teams. This crunch where we have like several guys who are. I mean, like even removing Licorice. Like I mean, Revenge had the best season split of his career last split. He had a great season on him. Yeah. He was held back on Immortals. He showed on frankly a budget like shoestring tire fire EG roster when the org is in shambles. And yes, that was JoJo's MVP split, but Revenge was definitely, I would say, like the second. I mean, I think Armeo played very well around JoJo, especially early on. But I mean, anyway, the point is, there's a lot of players who are really talented that aren't in the LCS this split, and I hope that changes. At the same time, it is nice to see, circumstances aside, people get chances that maybe we wouldn't have gotten to see. Maybe in this world, they decide Sniper needs another year, and clearly, I don't think he does. I think he's exceeded my expectations individually. Yeah. He's done well on tank picks. It is Cassante, but still, he's playing better on tanks. The fact that he was able to execute the Riven on a competitive level was something that Viper was able to do occasionally as well, like when he was at his best. But this guy already looks like he might have a more complete skill set. And it's really exciting, especially because, I mean, I'm the biggest River fan. I think he's fantastic, and the way that he's been playing through Sniper and helping Sniper succeed, like there's such a great 1-2 punch for 100 Thieves, and it's been the main reason why I think that, and we'll get more into this, but why 100 Thieves has, I think, undeniably exceeded the expectations of where they were going to be at this point in the season.
Oh, without a doubt. And before we dive too much deeper into a couple of these things, because I do think there are more for us to go in, I'll give quickly my game of the week. And I actually am going to be looking at the 100 Thieves Dignitas game, mostly just because I found it to be really entertaining. Like, it just felt like, 100 Thieves had a pretty decent control of the game, but Dignitas would punch back, and then 100 Thieves would have to keep coming back and, really just ultimately winning the game. Like, the play that I think really turned the game around for me was when XU flash queued over the chickens and almost one shot I think it was both carries. I can't remember who it was, but he like gets them both right next to each other. And if they didn't have help around them or as close as it was, I think he could have just knocked them both out and genuinely like potentially put them on the path to victory. So I really, really, really enjoyed that game. I felt like played really, really well. I loved seeing Ayla on the Senna. Actually, I felt like it was not only a great pick and one that I know most people probably hate in their games, but I actually enjoy watching Senna. I think she brings a lot of interesting dynamics to a team comp. And so, seeing them play around her, and then I think Sniper, like you said, played the tank role really, really well. Like his, ducking in and out of different plays, I felt like was really, really just well thought out. Like even if he had used his E, because I think that's the shield jump for Cassante, like at different points that he would use it to block abilities or to decide when he was going to get into a fight or out of a fight, it just felt like he was processing the game really well. And yet again, obviously River was just crazy, crazy strong in that game. And I don't know, it was just like a better game than I thought it was going to be, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's why.
No, it was a really entertaining game.
Yeah, and again, ultimately 100 Thieves ended up pulling it out, but I think Dignitas had a relatively tough week, and I think that it was a pretty good game to watch. So I just really enjoyed that one, and I wanted to bring that one up. But
yeah, definitely.
We're gonna go into our player of the week now, Nick, and I know you have one, a personal favorite of yours, so I will let you start by telling us about your player of the week and why he was that.
I like this player a lot because he's a great guy, but I the way that he is so hard to power rank, like because the way that he contributes to his team is so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we saw the broadcast. NRG was our only team to go to it this week. I thought they had a great week. I thought it was a very skirmish heavy early game against FlyQuest, but it was a very convincing win ultimately, even if it was bloody in the early game. Who he got it, he should have got it. He was fantastic. So I'll pick another player who I thought very quietly did a lot, which was Contracts. I love the way that Contracts contributes to NRG. He's kind of I'm hesitant to use the word coin flip because I think it's more calculated than that. It is very balls to the wall, but it is oftentimes identifying this. He is so great at identifying these early moments where he knows that a lane can just be turned on its ear immediately, especially with the laners he has. A big part of that victory against Fly was that, like, after the FBI and Huhi weren't afraid to trade kills early on because they weren't afraid to trade because they knew eventually we're going to keep executing on these plays and we're going to be the better bot lane because we're more experienced with these guys. We've played together longer, and Contracts is a huge part of facilitating that. Crucially, NRG's 2 wins were against FlyQuest, who has Inspired, who for my money is right up there alongside. If he hadn't taken 8 months, I'd have him on par with Blabber as the best jungler in the league. I'd say he's second right now.
Yeah.
And then the other win was against 100 Thieves, right? 100 Thieves they played, right? Is that right?
Why do I want to say it?
It was 100 Thieves.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was 100 Thieves. Yes.
So you have River and Inspired, 2 guys who not only are like oftentimes the beating heart of or you know what, actually a more accurate term, the nucleus of their team's game plans in the early game, and they're both very measured, well thought out junglers who they have their very cerebral plans. Not that they can't carry games, but just specifically the way that they get their advantages is very brain focused. I'd say they're 2 of the smartest pathing junglers that we have in the LCS. River and Inspired are the 2 best at that.
I would agree.
And Contracts' style is the polar opposite. And for him to go up against those 2 guys, obviously NRG's a great team, but it's so important for him to, the way that he plays, it almost feels like by throwing the game into chaos, he kind of neutralizes these guys who have these great preparatory plans who can kind of play these games out. And that's what 10 minutes in, it was like there were 12 kills and it was close, but I'm like, you don't want to get into a mud fight with NRG. That's where they thrive. Don't come down to their level. They will mess you up. Like that's what they want. And we saw, like, ultimately it was like, 5-5, and then all of a sudden 7-5, and then 12-5. The NRG won the game in 30 minutes because you don't want to play their style, especially when you have guys like Inspired and Jensen who really can, like, throw together a game plan. And not that FlyQuest played poorly, but I just, I'm getting a little bit off track here. But the point is that Contracts creates this element of chaos that makes our NRG the best team at thriving in chaos. And to see them do that well against 2 teams that like I said, really rely on these cerebral junglers and have like two incredibly intelligent junglers. To see him execute that properly and kind of just neutralize that advantage shows exactly that he understands exactly what his role is in this team. And he's willing to like put everything on the line for his individual performance to make sure his team wins. And I just absolutely love to see that in a player. And it makes him hard to rank because you're like, is he one of the best junglers in the league? He's a defending champion. I don't know, because it's hard to tell, because like the intangibles he brings to the game is like there's a sacrificial nature to it. And I just absolutely love the way that he plays the game because it's very unique compared to the rest of the junglers in this league. He takes risks that nobody else does, not even Blabber, in my opinion. And it's exactly what his team needs, and that's beautiful to me.
I love it. That's why I wanted you to go first, because I knew you were going to give us a beautiful example as to why Contracts is so good. Mine will be basic this. He thrives in controlled chaos, which I think is fantastic. And just seeing him succeed finally, I know it's been the storyline for, a while now since he's gone over to CLG, now NRG. But like, just seeing a player fight so hard to succeed and to find that success and to continue to, I think, even exceed my expectations. I think that whole NRG team outside of FBI consistently exceed my expectations. They are just made of players that, Dokla, right? For years, I thought Dokla was just not very good. I was like, I just don't know about him. He comes back and crushes it, right? Same thing with Contracts. Palafox I always thought was going to be pretty solid, but he was a little disappointing at the beginning of his career. Figured it out. Who he has just consistently been like, why do people not rank him top 3 every single time? Without question, if he's going to play in a split until he proves differently, he is a top 3 support, right? It's just like, those are the kinds of things that, and like even FBI, people give FBI crap all the time, and I never understand it with that team. So,
we have a bunch of guys who, okay, well, we should, I would love to, but yeah, we should, right? We shouldn't, we shouldn't, because I have so many thoughts on NRG, but that might be that's a different conversation.
Honestly,
we can move on.
When they're in playoffs, I think that'll be our opportunity too. And like I said, we're gonna have 2 weeks off. I think Nick and I are still gonna record. I think there's a ton for us to still kind of dissect and dive into, even with only 3 weeks of gameplay. I know that may not seem like a lot, but 7 games can tell you quite a bit, in my opinion, at least. So, for me, my player of the week was River. I don't know why, but it's just like this 100 Thieves team really intrigues me. And so I've been really hyper focused on them, I think, over their last, couple weeks, obviously through these games. And what River is doing, even we talked about this in our first episode, where it was like, well, River's great, but how are these guys going to respond, right? Like, how are they going to, I think, evolve and conform themselves around how River plays? And I can't believe I'm truly saying this, but like, River is giving the same vibes as Huhi. That's why I think they played so well together to me. Like, they just lift up a team, and they are so good at finding where, like, the right points of attack, and allow their carries or their other players, their laners in general, to do so much, right? And I know they're different positions, but I think I see the jungler position and the support position in a similar vein, especially in pro play, where, you have carries, especially in the jungle, but for the most part, I think the best ones are also able to amplify and really lift up the rest of the team in significant ways that people maybe don't notice. And I think River just does that just to such a great degree. And he always seems to have a plan when he's going somewhere. He doesn't seem like he's ever really lost. Like, sure, you may see, like, why is he going in there at that? And then you go and you look back at that play and you're like, wow, I can totally see where his vision was for this. This makes sense. Yeah, maybe the team didn't follow him up with it. And sometimes that can be a bit of a, double-edged sword. But watching him play this week, and I think really give 100 Thieves a much stronger feel than they probably should have, with so many players with just a ton of inexperience. It's been great to see. I mean, Quid has looked so much better than I thought he was going to. Sniper, I assumed was going to be good, but I didn't expect him to look this good early on. Meech and
right away,
have been a much better bot lane than I expected them to be already. And I think a lot of that is because River takes off so much pressure by doing what he does best, which is lift up everybody else. So he's my player of the week. I think he's shown through this week. I know Obviously, they didn't win that game against or against NRG, but I think it was a pretty solid game overall. And then, in their second game against Dignitas, like I already said, I really thought that I think, is the one who kept control of that game and didn't allow it to get into a place where Dignitas could really hit that second punch. They'd hit that first punch, but 100 Thieves would hit back, and I think a lot of times it was River, to use, I guess, a little bit of MMA or boxing analogy. Not that I'm know very much about it, but it's the 1-2. So they'd hit the one and he hit the two, basically. So
definitely,
yeah. But we've got a couple more minutes here, Nick, and I just wanted to see if you had any other general thoughts you wanted to go into. I do think we should spend a minute. I guess I'm going to steal this from you. You don't get to say it. I'm going to say it. I want us to do Cloud9. I think we should talk about them for just a second in that weird game against Shopify, because it was strange to see them go out and lose that game. But like you said, it's crazy that you predicted it. That being said, I feel like that's the only way they do lose games. And I'm okay with that, to be honest with you, because I think you learn more from losing than you do from winning the entire time. And I think we've seen multiple, I think Doublelift has talked about it in the past with some of his team, Bjergsen, and, the same way. I think that it's kind of, it's good to have some failures. And while I would have preferred it be because another team just straight up beat them, it's going to sound bad. I know Shopify did play that game really well, but I also think Cloud9 made a bunch of weird mistakes. And for the first time in, I know it's only been 4 games, but, in the one time of their 4 games, they showed to be a little bit off kilter, not as gelled as we would have thought. But I think that that's okay in my mind.
Yeah. So I ended up speaking to Fudge for a bit after the game, and that Vayne pick has not been played in scrims. That has not been played anywhere. They have never played that pick before. Okay. So if it looked like it, that's because it was. I loved the methodology behind it. I love the fact that JoJo was willing to pick it. I think that those kind of choices are what you need to take a strong domestic team to the next level. Like we've seen teams like TSM in the past stick to safe picks. And it's enough to win LCS. You need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to take these risks. So yeah, I think it's good that they lost, because I don't think it was a matter of, wow, C9 forgot how to play League of Legends. This bodes poorly for our region's best team. This is C9 willing to throw the gauntlet down and try things, because this team can stay safe and probably win the whole league. They're the favorites. We get it. I think their aspirations are larger than that. I think they have to be. And so I do like it. And for the record, one close game, they didn't get stomped. Mm-hmm. And the Vayne mid itself was not the issue. I think that the team suffered greatly from not knowing how to play with a Vayne mid, a very unique pick and very, very not difficult, but just the way that you're approaching the mid lane is entirely different. And Blabber and JoJo have been kind of the one, to borrow what you said earlier, the 1-2 punch for how C9 has played their early games. And that had to be very different. Shopify also played really well. Yeah, I mean, they had an intelligent composition. I loved the Sion Udyr with the Lilia. So I don't want to take anything away from them either. But I think it's fine. I'd never thought that C9 was going to be an 18-0 team. Both in terms of, I think it's really hard to do, and two, this is a team, like I said, with a lot of egos. They're going to want to try stuff. All of these guys have been carries in their own respective rights, and I think it's good for them to try things and figure it out. But yeah, they had never practiced the pick before, and I told Fudge, I'm like, hey, well, I liked where you guys' heads were at. I hope we see the Vayne again. And he just is like, I don't. Yeah, definitely. I think that, not a pick they were prepared to play, but I like that they were willing to do that. They shouldn't be afraid to lose a game to 0-3 Shopify if they have aspirations to do something at Worlds. Who cares? This will be a footnote on their road to greatness if they actually approach the season with the right perspective. So I don't think it's anything for C9 fans to worry about. I think it's for Shopify fans to be happy about. And overall, I think it's something happy for C9 fans to be happy about, that they're willing to play Vayne mid and stuff like that. That's good. This is a good thing ultimately, even if it was tough to watch.
Yeah, it was. That was a weird game, man. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to worry about Cloud9 now. If they start doing this stuff regularly, then that's when it becomes a problem. And we'll go on the next episode into our power rankings and our picks, and I'm sure you guys will see that. I doubt that Nick and I will have lost too much confidence in them, to say the least. But they did remind me we did need to go through our picks real quick. You guys will get to see them. I forgot to actually black out our stuff for it. So you guys will get to see how we did. But I can tell you, we already calculated them. Nick and I both went 5-3, even though we had I think it was like 2 different games that we both picked and lost. So that was really funny to see, not that should be, I guess, a huge surprise, but we're now 10-6, Nick. So we're killing it. We are well above 500 in that regard. And I'm hoping that it'll continue. But before we sign off, do you have any additional thoughts that you want to throw out there to the LCS fans that are hopefully watching this?
Playing on the live patch feels good. I think that's one of my favorite things that they've changed for this year. I thought it was really awesome. And I hope we continue to see innovations, because in the past, some of North America's best peaks as a region have been through innovation, with Aframu with range supports on CLG MSI 2016, Licorice with the Hecarim Aatrox counter that ended up making it to the world stage after using playoffs. So I love it. I think it's a way for North America to maybe personify itself as a region that not only has its own identity, but also its identity could be to break the mold. I mean, why not? What do we have to lose? I think it's good to encourage these teams to be trendsetters and be innovators, and that's something that I'm really, really happy about as someone who's champion diversity is one of my favorite things in League of Legends. So live patch good.
I couldn't agree more. And I don't think I have much to add to that because, again, as always, you put it pretty eloquently, my friend. So we
Thanks.
appreciate you guys all watching. And, make sure, again, to check out our Thursday episode where you'll get to see our power rankings and our picks for the week. But with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.